The Godfather, 1972, isn't just a film. It's a legendary piece of cinema that redefined the gangster genre and set a new standard for storytelling in Hollywood. With its haunting score, masterful direction, and unforgettable performances, the movie became an instant classic. But over the decades, we've lost some of the brilliant actors who gave life to the Corleone family and their world. In this video, we take a moment to remember the stars of The Godfather who have sadly passed away. From powerful leading roles to memorable supporting characters, we honor their contributions to this masterpiece and the lasting legacy they left behind in film history. Marlon Brando was born on April 3, 1924, and played Don Vito Corleone in The Godfather in 1972 at age 48. His portrayal of the aging mob patriarch, with slurred speech and commanding stillness, became one of the most imitated performances in cinematic history. Don Vito was quiet, brutal, and deeply family-oriented, traits Brando embodied to unnerving perfection. But off-screen, Brando's life was a tempest of scandal, eccentricity, and secrecy. Born into a dysfunctional home with an alcoholic mother and abusive father, Brando's childhood was riddled with emotional abandonment, which led to a lifelong distrust of authority and erratic behavior. He carried this into his career, where he battled directors, refused to learn lines, and was known for sabotaging takes. He was banned from multiple studios during the 60s and publicly blacklisted before The Godfather revived his career. The Oscar-winning role should have marked a triumphant return, but in typical Brando fashion, he refused to attend the ceremony and sent a Native American activist in his place, igniting a media firestorm. His personal life was darker still. He fathered at least 11 children, many from affairs, and was notorious for chaotic relationships. His son Christian was convicted of manslaughter, and his daughter Cheyenne died by suicide, a grim reflection of the turmoil within the Brando household. He hoarded secrets in his private island in Tahiti, where he reportedly lived in near isolation during his later years, increasingly reclusive and consumed by paranoia. He also faced several lawsuits over unpaid child support and allegations of abusive behavior from ex-partners. Despite his instability, Brando remained a giant in Hollywood until his health declined from obesity, diabetes, and years of poor lifestyle choices. On July 1, 2004, he died of respiratory and heart failure in Los Angeles at age 80. At the time of his death, his estate included real estate in California, Tahiti, and cash assets totaling approximately $100 million, though much was lost in lawsuits and mismanagement. Richard S. Castellano was born on September 4, 1933, and famously played Peter Clemenza in The Godfather in 1972 at age 39, a role that balanced warmth with menace, making the phrase, "leave the gun, take the cannoli," one of cinema's most quoted lines. On screen, Clemenza was a loyal capo regime with a love for family dinners and murder done quietly. Off-screen, Castellano's insistence on controlling how Clemenza was portrayed would cost him everything. Though widely beloved for his authenticity and charm, Castellano was deeply insecure about being typecast as a mobster, despite his real-life ties to people allegedly connected to organized crime. His upbringing in an Italian-American household in Brooklyn was one of poverty, tension, and rigid masculinity. Known to rewrite his lines on set, he clashed hard with Francis Ford Coppola and refused to return for The Godfather Part 2 unless his demands for script approval were met. Rumors circulated that his wife, who often acted as his unofficial manager, had become so domineering that producers refused to negotiate with him at all. By the early 1980s, his career had dwindled. Whispers about his mafia connections, never proven, fueled gossip that he was either being protected or blacklisted. His marriage remained private, but friends noted he lived with suspicion, often paranoid about being surveilled. Castellano died suddenly of a heart attack on December 10, 1988, at the age of 55 in North Bergen, New Jersey. He left behind an estate rumored to be under $1 million, comprising modest real estate, personal items, and sparse residuals. While he never escaped the long shadow of Clemenza, that role kept his name alive, forever frozen in time, both as a cultural touchstone and a cautionary tale of how ego can kill opportunity in Hollywood. James Caan was born on March 26, 1940, and played the role of Santino's Sonny Corleone in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 32. Sonny, the hot-headed eldest son of Don Vito Corleone, was violent, charismatic, and fiercely protective. Qualities that Caan embodied with such raw intensity that it earned him an Oscar nomination and permanently etched him into pop culture. But while the film made him a household name, behind the scenes, Caan's life often mirrored Sonny's rage and recklessness. Raised in a rough neighborhood in the Bronx, he grew up under the rule of a cold, overbearing butcher father and a mother who emotionally shut down after the loss of his sister. An early trauma Caan rarely discussed. Rebellion became his language. He fought his way into Hollywood, but once there, he quickly became known for cocaine binges, violent outbursts, and an obsession with gambling that left him blackballed in the mid-1980s. His infamous fallout with director Rob Reiner and threats towards studio execs led to a 5-year acting hiatus. Worse, he was investigated, though never charged, for alleged abuse of ex-wife Ingrid Hajek and faced multiple lawsuits, including one over unpaid gambling debts in Las Vegas. His love life was a carousel of failed marriages, 4 in total, and his children reportedly kept their distance in later years. Deep depression, brought on by his sister's death and industry rejection, led him into isolation. Caan died on July 6, 2022, at 82 from a heart attack caused by coronary artery disease, complicated by COPD and congestive heart failure, at the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. Despite decades of turmoil, he left behind an estate valued at around $20 million, including luxury real estate in Beverly Hills, a collection of vintage cars, and residuals from films like Misery and Elf. His legacy is complicated, a legend with fists clenched, haunted by demons he never quite outran. Richard Conte was born on March 24, 1910, in Jersey City, New Jersey, and was 62 when he portrayed Don Emilio Barsini in The Godfather in 1972. As the shrewd and icy rival to Don Corleone, Barsini operated from the shadows, pulling strings, orchestrating assassinations, and embodying cold-blooded ambition. Conte played the role with sinister elegance, but few knew how closely the performance mirrored his own veiled ruthlessness in Hollywood. Raised in a strict Italian Catholic household, Conte's early life was one of crushing poverty and silent repression. As a child, he suffered abuse at the hands of a relative, trauma he buried but never escaped. After discovering acting in his 20s, Conte rose fast, but his allegiance to unpopular political causes, most notably his vocal opposition to the Hollywood blacklist, made him a quiet pariah. Though he stood up for principle, it cost him dearly. Once considered for the role of Vito Corleone himself, Conte lost the part due to rumored studio pressure and internal feuding with Coppola, whom he allegedly threatened during a tense rehearsal. Off-screen, he developed a reputation for being cold, calculating, and fiercely territorial. Co-stars described him as a man who never forgot a slight. His most humiliating career moment came in 1968 when he was cut from the Boston Strangler just weeks before release, replaced by a younger actor, a blow that sent him into a downward spiral of alcohol and gambling. His personal life was no less turbulent. Divorced twice, Conte had several affairs with married women, including one scandalous relationship with the wife of a major studio executive, which many believe led to his blackballing from certain projects. He was estranged from his only son, who disavowed him in a 1976 interview. Racked with heart problems and bitterness, Conte spent his final years in seclusion in Los Angeles. He died of a heart attack on April 15, 1975, at age 65. His net worth was modest, around $1 to $2 million, with his estate consisting largely of film rights and a small Beverly Hills home. Though history remembers Barsini as the quiet mastermind, the real Richard Conte was a storm of unresolved trauma, hardened principles, and a career that could have been legendary, if only he hadn't let pride seal his fate. Lettieri, born on February 24, 1928, played the icy, calculating Virgil, the Turk Solozzo, in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 44. Solozzo, a heroin kingpin who set the Corleone family on fire with betrayal and blood, was terrifyingly calm and vicious, and Lettieri's performance radiated a menace that felt almost too real. That's because it was. Behind the camera, Lettieri carried shadows of his own. He wasn't just playing a mobster, he was related by marriage to Thomas Tommy Ryan Eboli, the then boss of the Genovese crime family. That connection gave him authenticity on screen, but off-screen, it meant FBI interest, whispered rumors, and doors quietly closing in Hollywood. His volatile temper was well known. Crew members on multiple films described him as combative, even dangerous when intoxicated. In between roles, Lettieri lived recklessly, smoking heavily, drinking hard, and known for losing large sums in backroom poker games. Though he co-wrote Villain, 1971, his attempts to gain creative control on other projects were blocked due to his unstable energy and alleged underworld entanglements. A major scandal erupted in 1973 when a producer accused him of threats and intimidation after a failed deal, charges that vanished mysteriously. His biggest professional collapse came in 1974, when he was removed from a promising lead role after a drug-fueled outburst at a hotel. He never recovered from the fallout. Lettieri's personal life mirrored his roles, fractured, suspicious, and filled with dark corners. He married only once, but the relationship was stormy, plagued by allegations of infidelity and violence. He had 2 children he rarely saw and whom he allegedly supported erratically. Friends reported his paranoia in the final year of his life, believing he was being watched by federal agents or worse, by his own former friends. On October 18, 1975, he died from a heart attack at just 47, alone in New York. No foul play was reported, but whispers lingered. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at under $1 million, much of it tied up in debts and failed screenplays. Sterling Hayden was born on March 26, 1916, and played the crooked police captain Mark McCluskey in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 56. His character, brutal, racist, and in bed with the mob, was a grim embodiment of systemic corruption, and Hayden's cold, stone-faced performance gave McCluskey a terrifying authenticity. Yet it was perhaps no accident that Hayden could so convincingly play such a compromised man. His own life was full of contradictions and darkness. Born into instability, he lost his father early and bounced between foster homes, never fully belonging. In his teens, he ran away to sea, later admitting he never trusted people who stayed on land too long. Though he found fame in Hollywood, he openly despised it, calling acting just a way to make money so I can buy boats. Beneath the rugged exterior, he was racked with guilt and self-loathing, particularly after testifying before the House Un-American Activities Committee in the 50s, naming names of communist associates, including friends. He called it the stupidest, most cowardly thing he'd ever done, and turned to heavy drinking and self-exile to escape the shame. His erratic behavior on set, showing up drunk, storming off scenes, and openly mocking directors, led to him being labeled unmanageable by major studios. His biggest professional disgrace came after The Asphalt Jungle, when he turned down a long-term studio contract, deriding the system but inadvertently blacklisting himself from A-list roles for years. His marriages were tumultuous, including a bitter custody battle with his ex-wife that saw him abduct his own children and sail them to Tahiti in defiance of court orders. Estranged from parts of his family and increasingly eccentric, Hayden spent his final years holed up in a Sausalito houseboat, writing memoirs and battling cancer. He died on May 23, 1986, of prostate cancer at age 70. His net worth at the time was modest, about $1 to $2 million, mostly tied up in his boats, properties, and royalties. Though celebrated for his war heroism and on-screen presence, Sterling Hayden lived and died as a man tormented by choices he never forgave himself for. A Hollywood legend who preferred the ocean's silence to the industry's applause. John Cazale was born on August 12, 1935, in Revere, Massachusetts, and stepped into cinematic history in 1972 at the age of 37, playing Fredo Corleone. the soft, insecure middle son who embodied everything weak, yearning, and tragically human in the Corleone dynasty. Fredo's eventual betrayal of Michael, not out of malice but deep inadequacy, remains one of the most devastating arcs in film. Cazale's performance, filled with trembling eyes and wounded silence, pierced audiences, and yet the man behind Fredo lived an even sadder story. Raised in a blue-collar Catholic home, John endured a difficult childhood marked by bullying for his frail health and quiet demeanor. A loner with a stutter, he often found refuge in school plays, hiding his pain behind fictional roles. Though he gained respect in New York theater, he remained overlooked in Hollywood due to his appearance. Casting directors dismissed him as too strange, too pale, or simply forgettable. But his talent was undeniable. Every film he made, The Godfather, The Conversation, Dog Day Afternoon, The Godfather Part 2 and The Deer Hunter, was nominated for Best Picture, a feat no other actor has ever achieved. Yet he was heartbreakingly insecure, convinced he didn't belong. Cazale's most devastating blow came in 1977 when he was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. At the time, he was engaged to Meryl Streep, who famously moved into his hospital room and refused other roles to stay by his side. What few know is that Universal initially tried to fire Cazale from The Deer Hunter after learning of his illness, only relenting when Streep threatened to walk. His medical costs were staggering, and he refused to ask his family for help, quietly draining his savings. Cazale died on March 13, 1978, in New York City at age 42, his body ravaged by cancer that had spread to his bones. His net worth at death was under $1 million, but his posthumous impact was immeasurable. Directors and co-stars alike cited him as a genius, and his portrayal of Fredo became a blueprint for depicting broken masculinity. Abe Vigoda, born on February 24, 1921, took on the role of Salvatore Tessio in The Godfather in 1972 at age 51. Tessio, the calm, trusted Corleone capo who quietly plotted betrayal, became a haunting symbol of old loyalty turned obsolete. Vigoda's performance was quiet but lethal. His body language said more than pages of dialogue could. What most don't know is that Vigoda's own life mirrored Tessio's loneliness and sense of being forgotten. Though he gained fame later as the morose Detective Fish in Barney Miller, Vigoda struggled for decades to break into the industry, often mocked for his gaunt appearance and unusual voice. Early in his career, he lived in near poverty, taking any role he could, sometimes performing in community theaters where he was known to sleep backstage. Though beloved by fans later in life, behind the scenes he was deeply bitter about being typecast, often rejected for roles unless they required an old man with a death wish. Vigoda was never involved in major scandals, but his personal life was strangely opaque. He married Beatrice Shy in 1968, and they remained together until her death. But rumors swirled of long separations, alleged affairs on both sides, and estranged extended family members who quietly battled for control of his small but growing estate. He became an internet oddity in the early 2000s due to recurring false death reports. Some believe these morbid jokes deeply upset him in private, especially as he began suffering from chronic health issues, including arthritis and respiratory problems. Though he continued acting well into his 80s, many of his late career gigs were done out of financial necessity. He died on January 26, 2016, at the age of 94, of natural causes in Woodland Park, New Jersey. His estate, worth an estimated $7 million, included modest real estate holdings, residuals, and memorabilia rights. Quiet wealth for a man who spent most of his life scraping by. Tessio's downfall, betraying the family thinking it was just business, felt all the more tragic because, like Vigoda, he misread the world changing around him and paid the price for staying too long at the table. Al Martino, born Jasper Cini on October 7, 1927 in Philadelphia, took on the role of Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather in 1972 at age 45, a part so entangled with his real-life saga, it blurred fiction and truth. Fontaine, a desperate crooner begging Don Corleone to salvage his career, was a mirror of Martino's own music industry nightmare. Early fame, then sudden exile after the mafia muscled into his management, forcing him out of the US in the 1950s. Martino lived in the UK in fear and obscurity for years. His return to America, facilitated according to FBI files by mob figure Russell Bufalino, was a comeback soaked in blood money and whispered threats. Even his casting in The Godfather was marred by underworld interference. After being dropped from the film, Martino allegedly called in favors from Philadelphia crime families to pressure Coppola into reinstating him. The director reportedly resented the maneuver but had no choice. Off-stage, Martino was known for a short temper, particularly when compared to other Italian-American singers like Sinatra, whom he viewed with jealousy and disdain. His 3 marriages were turbulent, one ending in court battles over domestic abuse allegations that Martino managed to suppress legally. His only daughter was estranged for years due to his controlling nature and volatile behavior. Despite these shadows, Martino found some peace in his later years through lounge performances in Las Vegas and Atlantic City, though his declining health and paranoia about FBI surveillance made him increasingly reclusive. He died of a heart attack on October 13, 2009 at 82 in Springfield, Pennsylvania. At death, his net worth was estimated at $10 million, built from hit records, mob-backed royalties, and residuals from the Godfather franchise. Johnny Fontane, like Martino himself, was a man who sang his sorrow, but never escaped the strings pulling behind the curtain. Lenny Montana, born Leonardo Passafaro on March 13, 1926 in Brooklyn, New York, was 46 when he stepped into the shadowy role of Luca Brasi in The Godfather, 1972. Towering at 6 feet 6 inches, with a brooding intensity, Montana brought chilling authenticity to Brasi, the Corleone family's most feared enforcer. The character, who was equal parts monstrous and reverent, fascinated audiences with his mute devotion to Don Vito and his ominous reputation for violence. Yet what many didn't realize was that Montana wasn't just playing a mobster, he'd been one. Before acting, he was a professional wrestler and a real-life enforcer for the Colombo crime family. This wasn't a Hollywood gimmick. Lenny had been involved in arson, extortion, and allegedly worked as muscle in loan sharking operations. He wasn't just cast for his size, he was cast for his criminal past. His nervousness in the now famous rehearsal scene with Marlon Brando wasn't scripted. It was genuine intimidation, and Coppola left it in. But Montana's off-screen life remained murky. Despite his brief Hollywood success, he struggled to transition beyond typecast roles and was constantly shadowed by FBI scrutiny. Rumors persist that he was still connected to the mob throughout the 70s and 80s, acting as a liaison between crime families and certain studios. Some insiders even allege he used film sets to launder money. His career never matched the peak of The Godfather, and he faded into semi-obscurity, doing security work and taking bit parts. Montana's personal life was equally rough, plagued by failed relationships, a strained bond with his children, and a gambling problem that left him perpetually broke. He was said to carry large amounts of cash in a duffel bag, refusing banks due to too many questions. He died on May 12, 1992, of a heart attack at 66, alone in a Florida hotel room. His estate, burdened by debt and unsettled accounts, was valued at under $1 million, with no real assets beyond memorabilia and a modest home. John Marley, born on October 17, 1907, in New York City, was 65 when he portrayed the egotistical and domineering film Mogul Jack Woltz in The Godfather in 1972. Woltz's screaming horror upon discovering a severed horse head in his silk sheets became one of cinema's most haunting images, and Marley delivered the role with a theatrical arrogance that felt uncomfortably real. Off-screen, Marley was known for his obsessive perfectionism and abrasive demands, often clashing with directors and co-stars over even the smallest script changes. Raised in a poor Jewish household in Harlem, Marley dropped out of college to pursue acting, an escape from the poverty and anti-Semitic bullying that plagued his youth. He spent years in obscurity, performing in low-budget theater productions and scraping by in radio gigs. Marley's rise was slow and hard-won, but with it came a reputation for being difficult. Though he avoided major scandals, his ego was infamous among insiders. One director once called him the most impossible genius I ever hired. He was married twice, both times ending in acrimonious divorces. One ex-wife accused him of emotional manipulation and narcissism in a little-publicized 1978 interview. He fathered 2 children, both of whom remained distant from him and rarely spoke of him publicly. Behind his gritty gravitas lay an actor who feared fading into irrelevance. His biggest professional humiliation came in the late 70s when he was quietly dropped from a major production after rumors surfaced about his unstable temper and ongoing heart issues. Marley kept it quiet, but the blow was so severe he nearly retired from acting altogether. He underwent multiple heart surgeries in the early 80s, and despite a late career resurgence, his health continued to decline. John Marley died on May 22, 1984, at age 76 due to complications from open-heart surgery. At his death, his net worth was estimated at $2 to $3 million, built mostly from residuals and real estate in upstate New York. Though remembered for iconic performances, his legacy remains marked by a volatile blend of brilliance and bitterness, an actor who never quite made peace with himself or those around him. Richard Bright, born June 28, 1937, in New York City, was 35 when he portrayed Al Neri in The Godfather, 1972. A former NYPD cop turned loyal Corleone hitman. Cold, calculating, and emotionless, Neri symbolized Michael Corleone's descent into ruthless tyranny. But while Neri was silent on screen, Bright's off-screen life was anything but quiet. He was arrested multiple times in the early 60s for his role in The Beard, a provocative play that featured simulated sex acts on stage. The case resulted in a landmark First Amendment decision, but not before Bright spent several nights in jail and saw major roles vanish overnight. In the underground New York theater scene, he was known for his intensity and his volatility. He once attacked a fellow actor backstage after a performance dispute, and there were whispered rumors of drug use and erratic behavior. Though respected by directors for his raw talent, Bright's career never reached the heights many expected. Studios deemed him unpredictable, and he was quietly blacklisted by several networks in the late 70s after an alleged altercation with a casting agent. His personal life mirrored his on-screen character's detachment: 2 failed marriages, estranged children, and a son who battled heroin addiction. Friends describe Bright as brilliant but broken, capable of profound insight but imprisoned by paranoia and trust issues. He bounced between character roles in gritty films like The Panic in Needle Park and Looking for Mr. Goodbar. But he never achieved financial security. His biggest professional heartbreak came in the early 2000s, when his role was cut from a major studio project at the last minute, without explanation. He died on February 18, 2006, at age 68, after being struck by a tour bus while walking in Manhattan. It was a sudden, tragic end to a life filled with artistic triumph and personal disarray. His net worth at the time was around $2 million, primarily from royalties and residuals from the Godfather trilogy. Alex Rocco, born Alessandro Federico Petriconi Jr. on February 29, 1936 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, was 36 when he delivered a career-defining performance as Moe Greene in The Godfather, 1972. Flashy, cocky, and doomed, Greene embodied the westward expansion of the Corleone Empire and its limits. But the real story of Rocco's life reads like a Hollywood noir. Before Moe Greene, he was known as Bobo Petriconi, a low-level enforcer for Boston's Winter Hill Gang. He was arrested in 1961 for assault with a deadly weapon and reportedly served time with infamous mobster Howie Winter. Rocco claimed he went to California to escape the mob, but insiders believe he left because a price was put on his head after botching a deal. Reinventing himself in Hollywood, he shed his accent with the help of Leonard Nimoy, but traces of his past always lingered. Though Rocco played lovable gangsters on screen, he was known behind the scenes as intensely territorial and manipulative. He feuded publicly with co-stars, often rewriting scenes to favor his character and threatening to walk off set if directors didn't comply. His most infamous meltdown came in the late 80s during a failed pilot where he was caught on tape screaming racial slurs at a crew member, nearly ending his career. It took years to recover, and only after public apologies and donations to civil rights causes did he return to regular TV work. His personal life was a roller coaster. His first marriage ended in scandal after tabloid reports of affairs with aspiring actresses, and his second wife allegedly filed for divorce twice before reconciling. His son, Rocco, a film director, died young in 2009, a loss that devastated Alex and was said to have contributed to his declining health. Diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2014, Rocco fought quietly but succumbed to the disease on July 18, 2015, at age 79. Despite a rocky career, he died with an estimated net worth of $2 to $3 million, thanks to voice work, syndication deals, and savvy real estate investments. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from The Godfather who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.